And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today we're taking a look at City Hall, which is a story of the third time it's a success. Didn't meet its funding goal the first couple times on Kickstarter, but Tasty Minstrel picked it up, and I've met the designer of City Hall. He's a very, very nice person. It's a game about building in New York and building cities. The game box itself doesn't look exciting, and well, frankly, neither does the game, but let's take a look at it and see if it is. Okay, the first thing we want to talk about in this game is how you score. And you're going to score because each player is going to have an approval rating down here, which that starts at 1, but can go up to 5. And you're also going to have a population. This is how many people you attract to the city. And at the end of the game, you're going to take your population and multiply it by your approval rating to get your final score, except there's also a pile of cards here, like whoever has the most money at the end of the game gets 10 points. Whoever has the most towers, the most housing, the most influence, the most factories, the most land, the most parks, whoever controls the deputy mayor, and whoever is the lowest on the approval track, all those people will get 10 points each. And this will very likely swing the game, because even if you get, let's say, 22 population multiplied by 3, that's 66 points. You can see that getting 3 of these, 30 points, can be a big swing in the game. Now, what players are going to do is players are going to be working with 2 currencies. You have money, which is over here, and I actually like how this money looks at the corner of a dollar bill. You have money, and you also have influence down here. And you'll start the game with some of each, actually with 10 money and with 3 influence. And you're going to be using those to work over the course of the game. There's going to be different plots in the game that are numbered here. We have plots in Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan. They're numbered, like, for example, here's a plot in Brooklyn, B5. And at the beginning of the game, players are going to get 2 plots and are going to be able to put something on one of those plots. Players will start with a factory, a tower, and a housing, and they all have different properties. On each of them, you'll see that there's stars. That star doesn't mean how much it's worth. It means how much it can be worth. So any property in Manhattan automatically has a star added to it. So you can see this, the black player here has a housing which can go up to 5 stars, but right now it's only worth 1 star. And buildings will add more stars and things as the game goes by, because as you put more buildings next to them, that will either add or subtract stars to them. Whenever there's a couple properties here which are available, and when no one picks them, money is added to them. So if someone eventually does take control of Brooklyn B1, they're going to get an extra $10. Now, the meat of the game are these spaces right here. They go here from the tax assessor, the surveyor, all the way over here up to the health commissioner over here. And what you're going to do on your turn each game is you are going to pick one of those spots. So let's say it's my turn and I'm orange, and I say I'm going to pick the campaign manager. Now, I don't get to use the campaign manager. First, each player makes an open bid with influence if they so desire to. Everyone gets to do that one time. When it gets back to me, I can pay the person who has bid the most influence. I don't pay them, I actually pay it to the bank. So let's say someone bid 4 influence. I pay the bank 4 influence, and then I take that action. Or I can say, you get the action. So let's say blue bid 4 influence. Blue then must pay me those 4 influence, and blue gets the action instead of me. So while each player gets to pick one, it's possible that you don't go on your turn, or maybe not even at all, depending on how influence exchanges hands. And between each round, players will get 1 influence, so some influence comes in the game, and these spaces will do various things. So let's talk a little bit about what some of the spaces do. One of the nice things this game does is it actually points, each space kind of points to what it does. So the tax assessor has to do with money. So when you use the tax assessor ability, you're going to get money. You get $1 for each population point you have at that point in time. You get $3 for each tower you have, and 7 for each factory. So you can see that while factories don't have as many stars on them, which will matter over the course of the game, you can get a lot of money from them. You can even double or triple your money by losing a point on your approval rating, so that's a way to get extra money. On the same instance over here, the lobbyist is a way to get more influence. When you use the lobbyist, you'll get influence equal to your current approval rating, and then you can buy more influence for $10 a pop, or you can sell influence for $7 a pop. Now, the way to get your approval up is to use the campaign manager. When you go there, you can go up 1 level for free, or you can pay 10 to go up 2 levels, or you can pay 30 to go up 3 levels. These stars here, by the way, are just number of players, and that's where you start. There's a star here that will move up when different things are built on the board, and when this star reaches the end, or when one person reaches the end of the track, that's the final turn. On the final turn, all 7 of these actions will be used. Now, population is going to be used over here when we do the health commissioner. The health commissioner looks at all the stars that are on buildings on the board, and you get whoever has the most when this happens. When this happens, everyone does it. Whoever has the most gets 4 population, second gets 2 population, third gets 1 population. The person who picks the space can either double their stars or add 3 to the total amount. Deputy Mayor, you would pick that to go first next time. You can see here that there's a turn order track, and it will stay the same unless someone picks Deputy Mayor. Remember, whoever controls Deputy Mayor at the end of the game gets points. And then the final 2 spots that we're talking about are here, the Surveyor and Turn Order. When there's a Surveyor, you can pay an influence to go through the pile and pick one of these to come out, or you can just draw the top one and pull it out, and then players, whoever wins that action, can take one of these properties over. That's actually Manhattan right there. And if there's money on it, they get the money on that property. If you pick the zoning board, there's your chance to build more buildings. When you pick this one, you can either take 2, you'll draw 3 buildings, and everyone will look at them, and then you can take 2 of those buildings, or you can take 1 and then place a building out on the board, or you can place 2 buildings out on the board. Now, the buildings are all the same as the ones you started with, the factory, the housing, and the tower, and there's also a park. A park is worth no stars, but it can increase or decrease the properties that they're next to. For example, if I put a park next to housing, that housing will get a star. If a housing's next to other housing, they both will get 2 stars. If the housing's next to a tower, it gets a star. If it's next to a factory, it loses a star. Factories get 1 for being next to towers and next to park. And all these adjacencies include diagonals, so B4 is adjacent to B1, is adjacent to all of these, and then you'll see there's some roads here to show these are bridges, so B7 is also adjacent to M4, M2 is adjacent to Q5, etc. So that's basically it. And that's the game. You're going to just keep going till the game ends. And at that point, whoever has the most points by that multiplication in addition from winning the different things is the winner of the game. The first thing I'll say is I really enjoyed these cards, the money cards. I think they look really good. And that's pretty much where my enjoyment of the aesthetics of the game ends. The board is really blocky and bland and modular and just looks boring. All right. And so for a game like this, which isn't a very exciting game to begin with, the game needs to have a more of a, I think, a vibrant look to it. But the gameplay itself, now, it's a city building game to some degree where you're trying to put different things next to each other, and there's several city games out there. So what does this one do that's different than the rest? And it's going to be on those 7 different commission spots, or 7 different spots that you're basically bidding on. And for me personally, I really dislike that mechanism because it can lead to a turn or 2 where you don't get to do anything because you simply don't have enough influence. Let's say we'll take a 2-player game, for instance, and let's say you've acquired a lot of influence and you have 11 and I'm down to 1. So on on one turn, you're just like, hey, I'll give you $3. I'll give you 3 influence, and I'm going to take that spot. Well, I can't pay you. Oh, actually, since I'm down to 1, you say, I'll give you 2. I can't pay you, so you give me 2 and you take that action. Then on your action, I'm like, I'll give you 3. You're like, no problem. You discard 3, and you take that action too. Then the next turn, you say, hey, I'll give you 4. Well, I don't have 4 either, so you give that to me. Now, eventually, I'll get enough influence to go back, but it might be for an action that I really didn't want. See, I like worker placement games where you get to pick where you're going, but then to pick where you're going and someone else takes that, and then they pick a spot that I wasn't really planning to go to, I could take that from them, but so I have to wait till the next turn to get the spot that I wanted. And the spots in there's an economy in this game. Like I said, it's basically two currencies. You have money and influence, and they're mixed with each other. But I don't know if it does it. To me, it was just really bland and boring. And I mean, to be honest, that whole bidding with the influence card thing, I really hate that because I hate taking turns in a game where I don't get to do anything, and where someone who's richer than me pushes me around a little bit and with an influence, and that's just not enjoyable to me. The actual game itself, where you put them down next to each other and they go up and down in stars, that's semi-interesting, but the fact is that Suburbia already does the same thing in a much more interesting way and in a much more thematic way, too. Here you have a total of 4 different things. You got your factory, your tower, your housing, and your parks. And again, the artwork doesn't help them look any good either. And just putting them next to each other and doing different things and how stuff comes up, the game is really tight. I mean, really tight. You make a mistake, you're probably going to lose. And the end game scoring really, like I said, comes down to those cards, and that whole multiplication thing is just so, I don't know, it just feels wonky. It's your approval times your population. And that's thematic because, why? So I will not deny that there's going to be people who enjoy this game and like it, but for me, well, I hated it. I really did. I didn't like playing it. The whole times I was playing it, I was thinking, when's it going to be over? And what am I doing here? And, I got to figure out, and how much influence do people have? And, I finally get to take this action. No, I don't get to take that action. All right, well, now what action do I get to take? And that, to me, games, I enjoy them more when there's joy in them, and this one has no joy. It's just not there. It's more of this, it feels like a very mechanism grinding to get out, and I don't know. So I think some people will really get a kick out of it, especially those who like mean, tight games where you have to, count every dollar and influence, but Dice Tower Judgment, boring.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.
There.